Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today. Let me tell you something, and I know I've been saying this pretty much every interview so far, but this guy today, Jeremy Griffin, get out the notepads, turn everything off in the house, get the kids, get them a babysitter or something.
Plug their ears.
Plug their ears. Yeah, plug their ears. Your mind is about to be blown, all right? So I'm so fired up about this. I met Jeremy, not even 6 months ago, maybe? 6 months ago, he was referred to us for, of course, a incredible sleep system. And he was in the showroom, and I had, at this point, I hadn't even really pulled the trigger on this podcast yet. But we chopped it up for about 10, 15 minutes, and the flow that we had going on and the things that he was saying that I was picking up on, I was like, man, this cat right here. And just so you know, guys, he's 29 years old. I'm 50. And when I'm talking to this guy, I feel like I'm a child that knows nothing. I'm serious about this. So, and when you're listening and watching this, I'm telling you, get ready for this information here. It's insane. He runs, do me a favor here, Jeremy. Give me your Instagram for everybody so I can follow you on Instagram.
At official J Griff.
At official underscore J Griff, Griff. Okay.
Yep.
And then your Level Up Collective. Give me something about that real quick. Let's kind of just sum up what you do, and then we're going to go back in time. You know the drill, and we're going to get to where you get to what you're doing, and we break it down further. So give me a little summarize of what you do.
Cool. One word elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I help people break free of the matrix.
Ooh, I love the sound of that.
So you could kind of attempt to bottle up what I do by saying, I help people achieve freedom.
Yeah.
The problem is when you start teaching freedom, you quickly realize that you can give people money.
Yeah.
They're still not free.
Right. Wow.
There's a mental piece.
Yeah.
There's a spiritual piece.
Yep.
There's a constantly paying bills piece.
Yep.
There's a feeling oppressed piece. There's many pieces.
Yeah.
So the Level Up Collective once started as helping people with investing.
Yep.
Helping them retire.
Yep.
But it quickly turned into something much, much more that I'm sure we'll get into.
Oh, yeah.
You know, consumer law, common law, the tax systems, banking systems, monetary systems, all of it, because I quickly realized, like, as I'm helping people make more and more money, they're still not free.
Right.
You know, and there's this feeling that comes with paying bills month in, month out, and feeling like you're just earning money to pay bills.
Yep.
So then you need to earn more money so you can pay more bills, so you can raise your lifestyle, so you can pay more. Like, it's the rat race, right?
It's the rat race.
So there's that piece. And then there's a lot of examples I could get into, but the tax system, right?
Which we will.
How incentivized are you to earn more if it just raises the bracket that you're going to pay taxes in?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pieces to it. But
I can't wait to get into this.
I spend an exorbitant amount of my free time, and I have a lot of free time.
You do.
Because
people
I'm
right now that are
grinding.
People that right now that are grinding are like, oh, really, bro?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I work a few hours a week. Sorry, guys. And I spend all of that free time figuring out how to get ahead and play the game of the 1%. And I've done that for over 5 years now, and it's starting to pay off.
Oh, Jeremy.
I don't like playing games that are unfair.
And the game we're playing is completely unfair. It's
very
completely
unfair.
One-sided.
Yeah.
Without question.
100%. So that's why I teach on these things, even though it brings spiritual and physical flack, if you will, into my life.
Yeah.
From whether it's projections or powers that be or whatever. Maybe we could get into that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Who knows?
I put up with that because it's worth it to me to be able to know, on your deathbed that you contributed to equaling the playing field.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
100%.
Growing up watching my parents, for example, they're going to work till they're like, for example, my dad can't even retire in San Diego. He has to move to a state that doesn't have state tax before he retires and cashes out his retirement and everything like that. He has to downgrade his living standard. He's worked his entire life for Scripps Clinic. He kills it, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because there's not financial literacy there. He didn't have access to the information I have access to because of the internet. The internet changed everything. And then same thing with my mom, living, pretty much paycheck to paycheck. And it's like, these are adults.
Yes, adults.
These are as millennials would say, boomers. And, that generation just didn't have access to what my generation now has. And so I'm really just trying to decentralize and distribute that information. So I put out a lot of free education. We have a free ebook. We have free webinars. And even on I pin things to my page, story highlights. That's just a full, you want to go down rabbit holes, check them out.
Oh my gosh.
Just because I think that this should be if your listeners hear what we talk about today and they go, that's fucking crazy. I would never do that. Cool. At least you had a chance. Everyone should at least have the opportunity to make that decision.
Right. Exactly.
So that's where I'm at with it.
And I'm feeling this so much with everything exactly the way that you're saying it. You know what I'm saying? Because, and I was saying this, if people are listening or watching this and they're like, this is absolutely crazy, come on. Hey, that's fine. You just weren't ready for the information at this point. That's all it is. Because this is real shit right here. This is real stuff that you're talking about. It doesn't get more real. And you know what? If they're not ready for the information, hey, it came across their plate, Jimmy Crack Corn, and I don't care if they don't do anything with it, right? On the other hand, I'm doing something with this information, and I got, just from talking to your girlfriend Jax last night, I'm already inspired beyond belief to tap further into who I am as a person and as a human being and why I'm here. And I can't believe I'm 50 years old. You kids are just, I'm blown away here. So anyway, with that said, let's go back. All right, let's go back to little Jeremy, and it's not even that many years ago, by the way.
No.
He's like, no, which is unreal. Talk to me about your childhood. Like what happened? What was the event? What was the moment that you think that you started cluing in on the fact that, wait a minute, this system isn't right, or maybe you became awakened, or just tell me like your childhood. Did you have brothers and sisters? Were your parents together? Was everything smooth? Was everything great? Was there any events? Let's go back.
Okay. So I think the easiest base to lay would be, I was raised very strict Christian.
Interesting.
I don't know if you would call that orthodox, but just very traditional. You go to church every Sunday, no sex before marriage. Not allowed to cuss. No watching anything that's PG and beyond.
Wow.
No sleepover at friends' house. Very strict. Very high standards, if you will. And so me and my sister, my only sibling, I have an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. You can only take that approach to parenting for so long before the pendulum wants to swing the other way. So in high school, me and my sister just decided to rebel hard, as we had a little bit more opportunities to when, your parents don't have as tight of a watch on you, whatever it may be.
Right.
So my rebellion phase started with weed and drinking. But really what did it for me was when I was 16, me and my friends started experimenting with LSD and psilocybin. Magic mushrooms, if you will.
And where is this? Where were you going to high school?
In San Diego.
Oh, yeah?
So, Patrick Henry.
Wow.
So anyone who grew up here, Patrick Henry, it kind of has that reputation. Like the first day of my freshman year, I'm walking in like a scared freshman. This is what high school is. And in the middle of the quad, there's a SWAT sting operation. They took down 7 of the biggest dealers in San Diego, and apparently they all went to my school.
Me?
Like the biggest LSD dealer, the biggest ecstasy dealer, the biggest cocaine dealer, like just hands down like this, cuffed. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm not gonna last.
You've got to be kidding me.
So because it's very upscale white
Yeah.
Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like it's not what you would think, but we bust in a lot of kids from all Southeast and So anyway, back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
It was this beautiful, synchronicity, if you will, along with many things that we're going to talk about today. Synchronicity is just a recurring thing that once you're spiritually tapped in, you just don't doubt it anymore.
Right.
You understand that there's no such thing as coincidence. So around the same time, I'm experimenting with psilocybin and LSD.
What's psilocybin? I never even heard of this.
This is just magic, what people call
mushrooms. That's it. Okay, magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just the psychoactive compound. And the reason I call it that is because if I'm walking around talking about magic mushrooms, you're going to instantly write it off and perceive it a certain way.
Right.
But we're now talking about something that's heavily studied. And there's entire organizations around this, and it's doing transformational work from people with depression, PTSD, cancer patients who know they're going to die, all sorts of things. So people can look into MAPS. They're really Paul Stamets, people like that. They're really pushing the science.
And
forward.
isn't Aubrey Marcus in on this thing a little bit?
He's just a big supporter, and he's had the people I'm talking about recurringly on his podcast just to help awareness.
Yep.
So I'm experimenting with these things, and around that time,
and this is 16 years old.
Yeah.
Who brought? They just brought it. It was there everywhere.
So in high school, I dealed weed.
Yeah.
So my part of the whole strict Christian thing was my parents would never give me money.
Yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
So I've been a hustler for a long time.
Yeah.
I've never had a job.
Yeah.
I figured out very quickly how to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, in middle school, I was selling candy.
Yeah.
Then in high school, it turned into weed.
Yeah.
I'm smart. I didn't go past that, but that's pretty much, So
we might not be here today.
Anyway, so because of that, I just had, connections and different things like that.
Yep.
So anyway, so, every weekend or every few weekends, we'd be like, what are we doing this weekend? All right, let's try LSD or let's do this or whatever. Just the experimentation rebellion phase.
Yeah.
Of kind of that anger of like, the church lied to me and my parents lied to me and everyone's hypocritical. And you're coming up to age and you're realizing like all these things you were told not to do, your fucking parents do them.
Yeah. Right.
And they lie to you about it.
Yeah.
And there's an anger in that that I didn't know how to process.
Interesting.
And so it was just a rebellion.
Wow.
And so I'm just going hard, right? Like ecstasy, MDMA, and cocaine, and just different things.
Yep.
And in that, there was massively transformative experiences because even though I was completely unconscious, that single experimentation with psilocybin and LSD altered the course of my life. Because in those states, it opens, I guess the best metaphor would be to say that if me and you right now, even operating at a high level cognitively, I could say we're maybe tapped into 10% of what we could potentially perceive right now. Yeah. And when you take something like those, it opens it to about 100%. Wow. And that's why you hear the things about like, oh, don't do it. Like it can make you go schizophrenic or whatever. Like, well, that's a real thing. Like it opens you up to taking in a lot more than you can normally. So all of a sudden now you can be tapped into things you've never thought about before. Right. Or you can have these downloads of like, holy shit, that never even dawned on me before. Yep. Or you can, tap into other realms, other dimensions, different levels of consciousness and all these things. So I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I thought I was just saying, fuck the system. But it really left an imprint on me. And at that same time, I was in this class and I did not like pretty much any of my classes in high school. Yeah. Except for like PE. Yeah. I'm in this class that was like my favorite class ever. It was the most memorable class for me from my entire schooling, and it was called Art of Film. Okay. And we studied essentially the symbolism, the metaphors, and the real deep meaning behind different film. And this class showed me movies like V for Vendetta, The Matrix. We studied the actual symbolism behind these movies. I was 16. Yeah. And also was continuously opening my mind. So that's what you see what I'm putting together now. Yeah. So it was a perfect cocktail of like everyone else in the room was just kind of fucking around, not taking it seriously. Correct. And I'm watching this and I'm like, this is a fucking documentary. This is nonfiction.
Yeah.
Like, how do you guys not get this? But it's because on the weekends I was going and doing different things. And I also have always just been a little different.
Yeah.
And so I took that very seriously. Like on the last day, I cried. I couldn't even say goodbye to the teacher because I was like, I would try to tell him how big of an impact he had on me, and I couldn't. And I was just like, oh, and I just felt embarrassed, and I left. But yeah.
Now, what year was that class?
That was
meaning was that your
so that was my
senior year?
That was my senior year.
So you didn't get to that class till senior year.
Yeah, I condensed 16 and 17 into what I was saying. Because there was a lot of experimentation and the rebellion, and at that same time, my parents let us know that they were divorcing, and so now me and my sister have like this freedom we've always wanted. Because how can a single parent have eyes on you the same way that they can when they're working together? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we're at mom's house, we have more freedom, and then dad doesn't know what we're doing. You know, those types of things. So.
And so let me ask you this real quick. You said that like what you were saying is the parents, they were doing differently than they were telling you. Mm-hmm. And was the church doing the same thing? You said the church lied to you, the parents lied to you. What went on with the church? And I'm doing this because I know how full circle you're at now. Mm-hmm. Back then, right? So with the church, what were you seeing back then that turned you off?
So it wasn't anything specific. I should clarify. I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So it's not like, our pastor had an affair or it's nothing crazy like that. Yeah. It was essentially just my parents. I'm young. I'm growing up, and how do I explain it? I'm looking to my parents to embody what I'm looking for them to set the example of what it looks like to walk with God.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so they're kind of a microcosm of what it looks like to be a Christian or to have a relationship with God.
Right.
But then behind closed doors, they're constantly fighting.
Yep.
And telling us we're not allowed to do something, but they do it.
Yep.
And the hypocrisy. So it's kind of that.
Yep.
So
okay.
I blamed God and the church for this.
Yeah.
And what took me until my mid-20s to realize was men are flawed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Humans messed it up.
Yeah.
Humans took parts of the Bible out.
Right.
Humans rewrote the Bible.
Yep.
Humans created churches and bent things to be more about money and power and influence and control than God's message.
Yeah.
And I don't know how deep we want to go, but churches are 508c1a non-taxable trusts.
Yep.
And that's the same type of trust that I run.
Yeah.
And so it's deep. Those donations you're giving, that's a business.
Yeah.
That pastor's a salesman, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that can be done in integrity, and it can be done out of integrity.
Absolutely. 100%.
But yeah, so that's kind of just what I meant about it.
Yeah.
I really, I took my anger and disappointment in my parents not setting the example I wish they set.
Yeah.
I took that out on, I guess, the world, but it got channeled at church, and then went through the whole screw you God thing and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and the biggest irony is that the way I did that was by doing things that connected me deeper.
That's exactly what I was about to just say.
Because I didn't deeply meet God in church.
Right.
I mean, I definitely had crazy moments where, everyone's in the same energy and certain songs being sung and you just get full body chill. Sure. I definitely had those moments. And I've always had a intimate relationship with the Creator since I was like a little kid. He would talk to me.
Yeah.
But it's like child's play compared to when you take certain psychedelics with the intention of connecting with the Creator. It's just...
And that's exactly what I was going to say, was because ironically enough, what stemmed you into actually running away and quote unquote rebelling was actually you actually connected to the Creator and your source, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, all right. So this is high school. You couldn't even say goodbye. You were you were so upset with the right. Was he just blown away? Was the teacher like, wow, nobody's ever gotten this excited over a film class?
Nah, I think he was just like taken back because like he used to always just call me Jay, and I kind of had the persona like I was too cool.
Yeah.
But in reality, I was just usually high, and I just didn't talk much. But he was just like, imagine the too cool kid in class, like who doesn't really talk much, like, who's like Mr. Smarty, whatever, like just break down and cry in front of him. So it was it was definitely a cool moment, and you know that. I don't know. It's just life is weird. Like looking back on that, like so much of what I do now, like for example, in the LUC, like I've done full on master classes breaking down the matrix for people. And like, it's just like, like life always works in loops, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, he has no idea what he did, you know?
Now let me ask you this. Do you think he was doing LSD and all that stuff?
I do, yeah.
You do?
He was one of the coolest teachers at the school. I think he had a really fun 70s and 80s.
I think he had a really fun 70s and 80s.
I mean, he had like longer, slick back hair. Yeah. A lot of the other teachers thought he was the most attractive teacher. He kind of had the Johnny Depp vibes.
Yeah.
He wore like, for example, button-ups, but he would like button them only to here.
Oh, yeah.
He was like tan, dark-haired. Like, he's just smooth dude.
And so, so now, did you ever? I'm like going off now on this because I'm fascinated by the whole the psychedelic thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever take it before class, like before that class?
No.
Those are wow.
I couldn't.
Was it just discipline? Like I would assume that you just want to go even further, right?
Well, me and my friends would pretty much smoke every day before school.
Of course.
And sometimes leave at lunch. So I was usually high or coming down during that class. But that's
weed does it too. Weed opens up your mind as well, right?
100%. Yeah,
100%.
It just puts you in your right brain. So you're going to see things. You're going to pick up more on like auditory and like subconscious and things where normally you would have to read in between the lines to pick something up. That's going to be dead apparent to you when you're high.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'm very logical left brain. So like that was a very different headspace for me to be in than be like analyzing like, you know? But no, like I never did that because just quite frankly, I would have gotten caught.
Because you would have been a mess.
Any of those compounds massively dilate your pupils. Sometimes you'll think you're having conversations with people, but it's just in your head. So like I would never risk that. There were drug dogs. I was on the suspected drug dealers list in high school. So they would randomly come into our class. Everyone has to leave your backpacks, empty your pockets, go outside, and they would do that in that class specifically because I was in it. So.
All right. So this is high school. All right. Now after high school.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And by the way, I'm a big proponent of weed over the years, man. And they're like, why? I'm like, my brain goes to another level that I can't explain.
100%.
And I have this, I'm a very analytical guy, very, but when, and I'm like, man, I don't know. So I'm glad to hear this actually.
I took, just for the record, for those of your audience who has no context of me, after I quit, like we're going to get to that. But I quit at 20.
Yeah.
And I didn't touch it until just over a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Because I ended up getting to a point where after I matured out of my rebellion phase, I kind of then blamed weed and was like, I'm tired of all these crutches that are keeping me average. Wow. I'm cutting them all off, and I'm not going to even consider those things until I'm retired in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Like that status.
No kidding.
And then what happened is I reached financial freedom a lot faster than I thought, and I was like, well, fuck it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? Because I ended up developing this belief that like if I were to even try weed again, maybe I could get addicted and I would lose everything I had built and worked so hard for. And it was like, what the fuck? So I had to identify that belief and be like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I think it was like 1 or 2 birthdays ago, Jax took me up to a cabin in the trees in Oregon. It was incredible. And I hit a joint. And since then I've been, I'll dabble here or there. Definitely not a consistent smoker still, and my tolerance is nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? Like in the old days, it was how many blunts you can smoke. Of course. And this is like 1 or 2 hits, and I'm like
you're toast.
Using it for like an elevated purpose. You know what I mean?
Right. So, exactly. All right. So coming out of high school, give me the trajectory from there. Yeah, okay. The segue.
So,
give me the coming out of high school.
Yeah. So I was the type of, we didn't start too young.
College. You go to college.
I was the type of kid who like, I'm really good at, like getting by. So like I I got like close to a 3.5
Yeah.
with a combination of like not having to study much just because of
Yeah.
just being pretty smart.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
some cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most people have, no shame over here. So
I'm laughing. This is me.
yeah.
You're describing me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit
Sometimes
more.
they
Maybe
were
a little bit
cheating
more.
off me too. So
Yeah.
it
Oh,
went
really?
both ways.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That didn't happen with me.
So I did what I needed to do to get, above
Yeah.
3.0, whatever.
Yep,
So,
yep.
I was smoking so much and doing so many drugs my senior year towards the end of it to where I didn't give a shit about, college.
Yeah.
Like my dad basically had to like force me. There was like 3 weeks left before application, before the application window was closed, and he's like, "You haven't applied for anything." Like, he sat me down and was like, "Look, like we need to choose some schools and at least try."
Yeah.
That was like my college experience. So like, that was the level of like I just did not care.
Yeah.
And so we applied for a bunch of CSUs. I didn't have good enough grades to get into UCs.
Okay.
So we applied for like CSU. I don't know. There's San Marcos, CSU, I think San Bernardino, Northridge,
right.
Sonoma, Sacramento. Maybe. We applied for like 6 of them.
Yeah.
I got into a few, and without visiting any of it, I didn't, like I said, I did not care.
Yeah.
I just was like, which one's furthest away? All right, I'll go to that one.
Yeah.
So I went to Sonoma State.
Yeah.
Up in Napa.
Yeah.
Roanoke Park is the little city, and my one of my two best friends ended up getting in like last minute, like in the ending enrollment thing where it's like, oh, they can actually let in a few extra people who maybe their grades weren't the best. He got in, and we ended up rooming together.
And were they on the same level at this point, like doing the psychedelics, tripping out on the Matrix, like loving
what I never understood, and me and Jax have had some cool conversations about this. Like, she's pretty much pointed it out to me because I didn't really see it this way.
Right.
So I was always doing those things for a greater reason. Even if we're just talking about like taking a bunch of ecstasy to say screw the system and having a fun time, that is happening. But also I'm like pushing the limits of like my consciousness and seeing like what is, how far can I stretch the human experience? And then also after it, like, what can I take away from that experience? Like, that was my worldview, even though I wasn't conscious of it.
Right.
And so, me and my friends, we did all of the same things. And I thought that we were all on the same page.
And you were not.
Enough time has passed.
Right.
I think we just had our 10-year reunion. No, I didn't go to it. I don't think they had it because of COVID. But obviously not.
Yeah.
A lot of them, most of them, really struggling.
Yeah.
Some depressed, many working dead end job,
Right. Yeah.
So something was different. And that comes back to God's plan.
Yeah. Yes.
So we did all the same things. We had the same opportunities.
Yeah.
And I suppose I really focus on deriving meaning from the experiences that I've had in life.
Right.
And not everyone does that.
Not everybody.
Apparently.
Right.
For most of my life, I've assumed that that's how humans
that's
are, but
normal.
I've come to find out it's not normal.
No, it's not.
No.
Unbelievable. So then when did you, because you said that's God's plan, when did God come back around for you? Quote unquote.
Yeah. So let me keep
I don't want to jump ahead though. So
it'll tie in perfectly.
Perfect.
It's like you're right
perfect,
there.
Perfect.
So I go away to college, and middle of my freshman year, I'm already like, you know what? I'm over this. Like, I'm not going to smoke anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just switched my vices. So now my vice was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm getting blacked out.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in some ways that was progress. I at least had a clear head a lot of days of the week, and I was able to be more productive in certain capacities.
Right.
So anyway, swapped vices. Freshman year, I get a minor in possession. Fairly standard, just for carrying alcohol on campus. It was a stupid thing. Geez. But then sophomore year, we move off campus. I'm not in the dorms anymore. And one night, me and all my roommates are drinking, and I had already drank a good amount.
Yep.
And everyone decides that I should be the person to go to our friend's house to pick up cocaine that we were all about to do.
Yeah.
And needless to say, I ended up staying, like hanging out over there.
Yeah.
Doing some of said cocaine.
Yeah.
Drinking much more.
Yeah.
And then by the time I came back, I'm intoxicated to the point where like I'm banging on our all girls neighbor's house next door to us that looks very similar. I'm just beating the door down thinking it's like our roommates, and they call the cops because they're frightened, you know?
Yeah.
And the cop comes and I'm like aggressive with him and whatever because I've never had a good relationship with authority.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't remember this. So and then because of that, he's like searches me.
Yeah.
And then I have cocaine on me.
Oh my God.
So I woke up in jail the next morning, and I had never been to jail before.
Yeah.
I know some of your viewers might be like, damn, this dude's a savage. But actually, like, I was a fairly good kid. Like, I'm just being more honest about it than a lot of people probably are.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never went there.
Yeah.
You know, I never did anything too crazy. But anyway, so I wake up in jail, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm like, I'm so confused. Like, I'm actually, like, pinching myself. I'm like, what the? I thought it was a nightmare. Yeah. And then I find out it's not a nightmare. Yeah. And basically, I'm genuinely puzzled. I'm like, how did I get here? Why am I here? I didn't know.
Wow.
And long story short, I have to call my mom from, 560 miles away.
Oh, my
hey,
God.
Mom, I need you to bail me out of jail. And, you can imagine that conversation. And just hearing her response, really hit me. And
what was the response?
Like, past disappointment, like very, very sad. Like she messed up. Like I was like not even trying to guilt and shame me. Like it was past it. It was like she felt like she failed.
She failed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like it definitely hit me hard.
Yeah.
Hearing her response.
Yeah. So
I vowed to change after that.
Yes.
And basically what happened is I had two choices, like get the actual sentencing or do like a rehabilitation program.
Yeah.
And it was kind of ironic because I got put in a situation where I had to go through all these different classes and different things for 6 months. And I was the guy sitting in class where like when it comes your turn to talk, who's like, oh, I don't belong here. Like, of course. And then everyone else is like, hey, you do, buddy.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
You know what I mean? So it was like a funny situation.
Typical. Classic.
Of like, I just stopped trying to say that. So it was like, all right, I'm going to accept this. Like I am going to admit that I have a problem, even if it's not to the extent of these other people who have fully wrecked their lives. Yeah. I need to own personal responsibility. And I did make mistakes, even if it was like, oh, I was just getting it for my roommates. Like, but I was also doing it recreationally. Right. And completely more blacked out than, so definitely there were addictions and things going on there. So for 6 months, every day I had to call this hotline to find out if I was going to be randomly drug or alcohol tested. And they do that because alcohol, doesn't stay in your system very long. Yeah. And they don't want you getting away with drinking. So like, you don't know, like you could have drank the night before and then you call in and they're like, oh, I have to go pee for them. And so that forced me to change my life. Yep. That plus my mom was like, it was a wrap. Yep. So basically, to kind of start consolidating things because of that event, that's why I got into fitness. Got it. That was the reason. Wow. Because I needed to start replacing a lot of my time. Yeah. I was already like, I had started to read like some self-development books. Yeah. And, a lot of the habit books are like, don't try to quit a bad habit, just replace it. Yes. So it was like that type of a thing of like, what am I going to do when I'm not, drinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday night? It's like, all right, I'll go to the gym by myself, get a 3-hour workout. Yeah. Like, yep. And I got into cooking and I started learning nutrition because that takes a lot of time. Of course. Cooking all your meals. And so it was a full lifestyle change. And at that same time, synchronicity. Yes. One of our roommates.
And this was what age right now? Are you at 20, 21, 22?
20.
20. Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't drinking age yet, and that's when all this happened, ironically. So I got it all out of my system young, and that's I'm very thankful for that. So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I'm 20 years old, and one of our roommates freshman year, who no longer lived with us, but he was in all of my roommates' same fraternity. Yeah. And he reaches out to me. And if this were any other time of my life, I would have like laughed him out of my room.
Yeah.
He's like, hey man, I have an opportunity for you I want to talk to you about. And like, whenever someone says that to you, it's like, no, I'm not interested. Right. I'm waiting to hear like, what is this shit going to be?
Yeah.
He basically pitches me on an MLM.
Yeah. That was going to be, it's going to be network marketing.
Yeah. And like I said, if this were any other time of my life,
yeah.
I would have laughed him out of the room.
Forget about
it. But I had just hit a serious rock bottom. I had nothing but time.
Yeah.
I needed to find more positive friends who were going to encourage things other than, you know, who can take more shots.
Yeah.
And then I had, you know, the fitness and the nutrition now, but, you know, I needed some other outlets.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll go to your meeting.
Do you remember the? Oh,
yeah. So it was called Vima.
Okay.
Vima, and the main drink that they sold was a health drink called Verve.
Yep.
It was very popular on college campuses.
Yep.
So, long story short, I did that. No, I didn't become the passive income millionaire that they sell you on.
Of course.
But that also is a pivotal piece of my story, because that happened at 20.
Yeah.
And so you started this podcast by bringing up how I'm young.
Yes.
And, you know, like, how have you gotten here by 29?
Right.
Well, I was 20 years old, and I already knew like I didn't like the system, and I never resonated with having a job.
Yeah.
But I was being groomed. I chose business and marketing degree.
Yep.
And I was being groomed to figure it out, like how to make a lot of money in corporate.
Right.
And at 20 years old, I go to these meetings, and there's 18, 19, and 20-year-olds driving company paid for Mercedes AMGs, BMW M3s, and making anywhere from 10 to 100,000 a month passively.
Right.
And they're doing that. They're living this lifestyle that I'm like, how the hell are you doing this?
Yeah.
And that company really fostered, as all of them do.
Yeah.
They're really big on personal development.
Of course.
They give you an education.
Absolutely.
And that was more valuable than my college
100%.
education.
No doubt.
So I'm 20 years old. I'm introduced to Think and Grow Rich,
Yep.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yep.
all of Robert Kiyosaki stuff, Bob Proctor's stuff, The Secret, all of that stuff.
Yep.
And so let's tie it in. How did I get back to God?
Yeah.
I remember them they had like, I don't remember, like they just had like lists and lists and lists of like recommended books.
Yeah.
And I would just like randomly like check some out.
Right.
I check out The Secret, which is a video. Like you've seen it, right?
Oh,
so I have to go on YouTube. It's not a book. And I search it. As soon as I start watching it, I'm like by myself in my dorm room. Something just takes me over, and I just start bawling. Wow. I get like full body chills, and I just start crying like a deep grief. And it was immediately apparent to me that I was grieving out of how sorry I was to God for turning my back on there being something deeper at play in my life.
Yeah. A higher power.
And it had been years and years of my rebellion phase at this point, which is largely aimed at God, projected in other ways, but that's really what it is. I was trying to figure out life, and I felt like everyone lied about it, and everyone wasn't embodying anything, and I didn't have any real role models who weren't hypocritical in certain ways. And so it was all that, and then just watching that was ridiculous. So that was a pivotal moment that I will definitely always remember. And then to fast forward it a little bit, that kickstarted me into fitness. I ended up making a fitness Instagram very shortly after getting into it.
Yeah.
And I was just like going to document my journey.
Yeah.
So I made the Instagram that you now follow.
Yeah.
But it was called JGriff Fit.
Yep.
And then eventually JGriff Lifts. It was different things, but it was a fitness.
Yeah.
Strictly fitness.
Right.
And after, I'd say 2 years or so of focusing solely on the fitness stuff, as you know, fitness is an excellent catalyst to growth in other areas.
Mm-hmm.
Once you clear out your body a bit, once you get, your hormones into a better state, once you get your overall wellness and your stress levels managed, you start wanting to do better, and you start operating at a higher vibration, even without any spiritual practices, just default.
Yeah.
now you can do better.
Yep.
And so it wasn't long before I find books like The Power of Now, which was the first spiritual book I ever read.
Love that one.
And that book was the first time I experienced a ceasing of my ego, my egoic narrative, the voice in your head.
Yeah.
I'm reading the book and I'm just having, 5-minute periods of like, it's dead silent in there.
Yeah.
And I just feel completely at peace.
Yeah.
So that kind of ended up tying into the work that I was doing, because I just fast forwarded us from me being 20 to like more like me being 22. And I have been consistently working on building this fitness coaching business.
Yep.
And I reached a point where I ended up being like, this isn't like, basically it felt like I was doing one thing for work, but I was living another way.
Right.
And I wasn't integrating it. And what I've learned about myself is that I feel most fulfilled when I'm teaching and integrating how I live into how I make money or how I serve.
Right.
So I wanted to start bringing in spirituality.
Yep.
And that's ultimately how and why I ended up pivoting after years and years of like working so hard to build this like full-time online fitness coaching business. And I was just like, let all my clients go in 2017 and just completely pivoted to spiritual mentorship, mind, body, soul coaching. And that was in 2017.
Yep.
And so, it starts off with just basic habits. Like, all right, I'm going to try this meditation thing.
Yeah.
And then you learn about cool things like, journaling and, getting more in touch with your emotions. And then you start reading about trauma and the mind. But my specialty was I was tying in fitness to the spiritual community. That hadn't really been done before. Yeah. You have your yogis who are like, completely emaciated. Yeah. And and then you have your jacked ass dudes who are like, work hard or no one cares. Yeah. And this was 2017. You didn't really have a merging of the two. Yeah. And like I brought like aesthetics and, proper periodized training and tracking your macros and habits and all that, and combined it with spirituality. Yep. And like, yo, that's cool. You can look like fucking Zeus. Yeah. But also like, own your emotions. Yeah. And like stop burying and repressing your trauma. Yeah. And like quit blaming the world for your issues with your mom. Yeah. And so that was like me going through that, of like me healing all this shit with my parents that we talked about. Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, like realizing like, yo, no one's talking about this. Yeah. And I know for a fact all these people have this issue. Yeah. Let me integrate this into what I'm doing. And so that was when my brand really changed and took off. It was one of those, exactly like for you. Yeah. The same way, I have a hunch at least. I didn't know you before, but did 2020, was 2020 an exponential year for you? Yes. And that was because of what seemed like crisis. Correct. Right? So that was timing. That's right. Right? Synchronicity. Exactly. Same thing for me. So 2017, all of a sudden in 2016, people weren't ready for this. And in 2020, it's too saturated. Yeah. But in 2017, people were like, what's this mind, body, soul thing? And yoga started to become trendy, and the word mindfulness and these things started to become trendy, and I was right there. And so it really worked out well for me. Yeah. And that kind of took my brand from like just helping people build their bodies, which I stopped resonating with, to like, yo, let's help them build their mind. Let's help them heal trauma. Yep. Let's help them get more in touch with their emotions. Yeah. Let's help them genuinely love themselves. Yes. So that was the focus from 2017 to 2019.
Because you can, what I've seen in the fitness industry especially over the last 7 years, once I've taken it, where I've gotten more in touch with the spiritual aspect of it, is I've seen that you can fix the outside all you want and look great, but if you don't fix the inside, you're still broken.
100%.
You're still a mess. Quite frankly, right?
You look in the mirror and you don't see any semblance of what you actually look like, first off. Yes. And second off, what's pushing you to get those extra few reps or to continue eating that tilapia even though you just want ice cream is self-hate. It's that you're not good enough. It's a lack of self-worth. Wow. Because if you felt worthy as is, why would you treat yourself that way? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, and I had to go through that experientially. Yeah. I did multiple, I did a 2.5 year bulk, and I put on, 64 pounds naturally.
Yeah.
And then I did a over 9-month cut, and I got very shredded, like as completely natural, like just, you know, because that's how you build a coaching business. You have to have a solid physique. So,
of course,
you know, I did these things repeatedly, and it was like, I was no happier.
Yeah.
Shredded.
Yeah.
You know, often the opposite.
Right.
And so it was like, I was chasing this thing, and it just kept eluding me. And I knew I wasn't, you know, I saw that in the industry and people weren't talking about it.
Right. Oh yeah, and it's happening, dude. I mean, competitors and going on a stage, and God bless them. I have a massive amount of respect for them peaking the body, and
100%.
But it's like it seems like it makes it worse, quite frankly, because then they're like, oh, if they don't win the trophy, if they don't get first, oh, I got fifth, I let myself down, I let my fans down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're just beating yourself up even more.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we could go on this forever too, by the way, this exact topic, because I'm fascinated by it. But now come into where you're like this other stuff that you're digging into.
The new stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up in
like
a few sentences.
Yeah. Like I'm like fascinated, like, because we're at 19. We're only a couple years out, and you're still not even to where you're digging into all this like incredible stuff now.
Yeah, I'm a fast learner, and when I find something that I deem worth it,
you dig in,
go all in.
Yeah,
all in.
All right, so give me how you got from there to this.
2017 to 2019, finally, you could say I really had a brand where like people in the space would likely know who I was.
Yeah.
Then I create the Aligned Entrepreneur, which was a natural segue from Mind, Body, Soul, because I started helping dozens and dozens and dozens of people really transform their internal lives to a point where now they wanted to go do that same thing for others. The ripple effect. But very few have business prowess. Very few understand marketing and human psychology and sales and how to run a social media, how to build a following, all that. I created a business program, but only for conscious entrepreneurs called the Aligned Entrepreneur. And that was in 2019. Once again, that did very, very well for me. Right place, right time. So the same way, like I was in the fitness industry and then I saw how I could disrupt it, because I was like, no one's talking about this stuff. It's all about how your body looks, but no one's talking about the emotions and all that. Right. So the same thing in the business space. It's very toxic, hyper masculine, right? No one cares, works harder. Team no sleep. Like, you know, who has the bigger jet and, but you don't see the other 90% of their life. Right. And you don't see the trade-offs, like where they're probably miserable in many of these other areas and they might die at 60. So that became my new message of like, it actually was the same message, just in a different arena now, but I see it all as the same thing, but it's basically just like, let's be real here. Let's have a real conversation around it. And business, usually the only metric is like money, like how much money are you making? And people aren't talking about like doing things in a way that makes you feel amazing when you put your head on the pillow at night, and using purpose or impact as your North Star, rather than like, you know, how many new leads you can get coming in, like if they'll give you their money, you're closing them, you know, that type of those like icky energetics. And so I kind of brought what I had learned in the past few years of all my own spiritual work into entrepreneurship, and I taught like a spiritual way to do sales, which doesn't feel gross, like it's a genuine value exchange. I taught a spiritual approach to marketing, and so on and so forth. So that was pretty much end of 2018, 2019, and then that brings us to 2020. So here we go. So end of 2019, I work with a world-renowned hypnotherapist named Dr. George Pratt. He's worked with Larry King, Common, Rob, Deirdrick, people of this nature. Guy that I really, really looked up to, spoke in my mastermind. And at the end, one of the members asked him what was the most impactful, I forget exactly how they phrased it, but basically like, who's the most impactful person you've worked with in the last year or two? And he was like, hands down, Dr. George Pratt in La Jolla.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy. What are the odds that this doctor, whatever, lives in the same city as me? Because the guy who was talking lived in Florida. Like, he could have been anywhere.
Right.
He lives, just 20 minutes from me.
Yeah.
So I start looking into him. And this guy specifically does hypnotism for success. That's his like branded thing. And he only works with like, he's like branded himself where he only works with like luxury clients, right?
Yes.
Like he only works with the affluent.
Yeah.
So he knows what the affluent wants, right?
Of
He's
course.
not doing hypnotism for deeper intimacy. He's doing hypnotism for success. So he's attracting like the alpha males who are like, I want more success.
Yeah.
Like for example, Rob Dyrdek said like, I guess he worked with Pratt long before he ever created like Fantasy Factory, and he attributed like some of his breakthroughs to, like, I would have never come up with that or had the confidence to do that without working with Pratt. Like, so seeing testimonials at that level, I was like, oh, I need it.
Yeah.
So it was very expensive. But
can I ask how much?
yeah, so it's like $700 a session, but
Okay,
I did over like 10 sessions with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if people are used to like therapists or that like usually when I tell them the price, they're like, oh my God. And it's like, no, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. For what you pay for.
sure.
I was expecting a lot more actually.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel you. I do. I've done high ticket sales, so I feel that way, but a lot of people.
Right. True.
Anyway.
True.
Okay. So I work with him a few times and I'm having dramatic shifts in my life.
Wow.
First off, I thought that like he was going to like do some like different hypnotism tracks for like money and like wealth and like, what I was expecting it to be, like some Bob Proctor shit.
Yeah.
Law of attraction.
Yep.
It was not that at all. It was all about self-love. Apparently,
no kidding.
I didn't love myself at all. And I felt extremely unworthy. And he was like, it's crazy you've gotten as far as you have because you're like a 1 out of 10 on, he does like different muscle testing and stuff like that.
You're kidding me.
Cool mind body stuff.
This is like,
he's like, oh yeah, you don't feel worthy at all. Like that's why you've been pushing so hard. And it was like, there's a lot to say about that.
No kidding.
And so he basically like, rewired some things and shifted my subconscious beliefs, which I particularly loved because that was my whole background. That was what I did with people. 2017, 2018, 2019 was focusing on subconscious beliefs. But he was a master. He had like 20 years experience. He's been doing this for decades. Yeah. So he's really good at what he did. Long story short, I started having huge changes, like big shifts in like, for example,
give me an example. Like what was the major shift?
The biggest random one was like with me and Jax. Yeah. So like I said, I was expecting to like all of a sudden.
So you were already with Jax at this point, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been with Jax? 3 years? 2 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years.
Mm-hmm. So we met in 2018.
18. Mm-hmm. And this is you started doing the because she's a hypnotherapist as well, right?
Yeah, she just recently got certified. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And this guy, this was in 2020.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
End of 1920. Yeah. So I'm working with him like December. Oh no! I remember. It was like literally I found him at the end of December, and then I was like, I'm gonna be like one of his New Year's resolution clients. Like he's gonna think I'm one of those. But it's just the timing worked out that way. Yeah. So literally I was like, what's your first appointment in 2020? Like I want to be like immediately as soon as you're open. So we started and I just kept going back for sessions. And so I'm expecting to like just start feeling like crazy confident and like just have like business ideas coming in, whatever. Right. And it wasn't like that at all. I just felt incredibly at peace. I wasn't judging myself anymore. And I felt completely different with Jax. Like I realized in that moment that I had been going throughout our relationship up until that point closed off. Yeah. Like my heart was closed. Yes. I was keeping her like close enough, but still at a distance. Yep. And I just had like huge shifts. Like one day I just break down crying and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't believe I've been treating you like this. Like just basically I realized I was conditionally loving her. And like after a few sessions, I like felt true unconditional love for her. And I saw her in a way I hadn't been able to see her before. Oh. That was just after a few sessions. And I was like, I thought we worked on success. What's happening to me? But that's just a byproduct because what happened is he worked on my ability to love myself.
Does he go there first? So obviously with every client, I'm assuming he goes there first.
It's usually the root of most things. It's going to be love, worthiness, safety, potentially feeling you could have the belief that you're bad. But in general, it's safety, love, and worthiness. But there's like 7.
So he'll start there.
And stuff. Yeah.
And with you, you realized you were a 1 out of 10?
Yeah. Yeah. Which was crazy, right? Because like
It's
you would look
crazy.
at me and you'd be like, you've achieved so much. And
Yeah,
it's like,
and you're
right.
teaching other people, and you're getting them in things.
So imagine the epiphanies it gave me of like, if I'm a 1 out of 10, what are all these other people? Like, I try so hard. My whole life is
Yeah.
about personal development.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
exactly. So, the only reason I tell that story is because it wasn't until I worked with him that I started in my meditations, I started having a lot deeper downloads. I had already had years of consistent meditation practice every morning, but I started having a lot of consistently deeper downloads. And one of the downloads, I'm just meditating, and it basically just Level Up Collective comes into my head. Literally, just like that. And it was like, what the hell is that? And long story short, I get the idea and name sitting in a chair with my eyes closed, thinking of nothing, I'm not even in my body. And because of what he did, the usual coming back into my left brain and going, but what about this? It's not going to work. I'm busy. There wasn't that anymore. And I just like immediately took action on it. And, we launched it in February. I just polled my audience and I was like, because I realized I had been building a community for long enough. And I just basically asked like, I'm thinking of opening up a community. It'd be very cheap membership style model, kind of almost like a membership website, but hybrid.
Right.
And how many of you would be interested in this? If so, vote and then drop your email, and I'm going to send you guys just a poll. And I basically just did live market research. I'm like, tell me all your issues type thing. And then I will help you solve them. Like that's kind of what I've always done, help people improve their lives in different capacities. So that's how the Level Up Collective started. I was charging $97 a month. And I could not get people to believe in it for the life of me.
Really?
Because of the price point. And that's a whole other conversation. But so we kind of started, I want to say like maybe a base group of between 20 and 30. And then I worked very hard.
How many did you have in the group prior to this, prior to making the switch?
No, that's what I mean. So when I launched it, the initial group that was like down was between 20 and 30.
Okay, got it.
And then, but so when I first launched it, because it was just a download and I didn't know what I was doing. Keep in mind also, this is pre-COVID.
Right before COVID.
Right before. I made the group All Things Me. So I'm like, all right, so this is we're going to be teaching things on business. We're going to be teaching things on mindset. We're going to be teaching things on, trauma modalities and inner work. We're going to be doing health stuff, lifestyle, biohacking, like all the cool shit that we're into. It was just like, basically people were buying into me. And, so that's what it was. And then COVID hits and just like you, timing, right place, right time. Like you revolutionized your business model, and it was turned a crisis into a huge opportunity.
Absolutely.
Same with me. So what is one of the number one things that people lost with the lockdowns?
Community, connection.
You just nailed it. Community and connection. What does an online conscious mastermind provide?
Community connection.
With other conscious people who are also like, yo, you seeing this shit? That thing is, it's like, that's a human need, a basic human need already into our biology. But then it's a step further when you wake up. You know what I mean? So once again, this isn't just a community. This is a conscious community where we're talking about like, I'm breaking down like when the CIA released, it did like it did a certain release on certain astral projection technology that they've released. Like I did a full call on that. Like just like that's the kind of community that this is. It's not particularly a normal community. But anyway, to go back to what I was saying. So it started out as All Things, and after about 6 to 8 months. I basically started polling our audience, polling our members, and asking them like, I got the idea like I wanted to like continue to improve it, and I wanted to kind of structure it differently because I had some space to digest. Now I'm like, all right, I'm see what's working, I see what's not. I want to like improve this. So I got the idea to like start doing like themes, like maybe we could focus on an area for a quarter because it was too all over the place, you know? And so we did that for a quarter or two, and then I asked people like, vote, are are you most interested in this, or this?
Yeah.
And one of the options was like wealth and financial literacy.
Yep.
And like 92% of everyone in the group voted that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
You guys may not know this about me, but I've been obsessed with wealth and financial literacy since I was 20.
Yeah.
And even before that, but I didn't have the tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is a cool thing. And I just kind of went with it and started teaching on that. And then the next quarter came and it was like, what do you guys want to do? And people were like, can we keep doing this?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, once again, back to God, right? Like,
Yes.
It wasn't even my decision. Like, I didn't come up with the LUC,
Yeah.
the Level Up Collective.
Yeah.
It was a download.
Yeah.
But that download only came after working with Pratt, who like just was a random introduction into my life that was like, how are you going to explain that?
Yeah.
And then once I created it, like I didn't even know what I was doing. I just did it. And then right after that, the flood came, but Noah had the boat, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like COVID happened like a month later. And then it turned out to be like this amazing thing, this amazing opportunity for me. And then I never intended to teach wealth. Like, I don't view myself as like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people that's like, you should listen to me, you know, like, stunting on people or anything like that, you know? I'm very much so private and I'm not trying to flex on anybody.
Yeah.
But it just like, that's kind of how it worked. And it was like, if the shoe fits, like I have a lot I could teach you guys. And like, people didn't even know me in that capacity.
Kid. Yeah.
So I just slowly started pivoting my brand. And we rebranded, did a different logo, made it more spiritual, and kind of came up with this conscious wealth. And now I have people in my DMs like every week telling me like, yeah, I just randomly came across your profile and I love that whole conscious wealth thing. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like so it seems to be once again, kind of like in 2017 where I was going mind, body, soul, and people wanted to talk to me. What is that? Like, I like the vibe of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing of like, look, the wealth space is fairly mature now on Instagram because social media is mature, right? It's reached saturation.
Yeah.
But what isn't mature is people teaching it from a holistic lens, where you're teaching it from a lens of money is just one aspect of maybe 6 areas that make up a meaningful life.
Yes.
And wealth has little to do with money. Wealth has, like what we started on, wealth has to do with freedom.
Yep.
Emotional freedom to be yourself. How many masks are you wearing?
I know. Day
to day in conversations. Why do you feel like you have to walk with the posture you do or drive the car you do or post the pictures you know what I mean? So there's aspects like that. And then there's the aspects of like wealth in relationships. Like what is the real quality of your connections? And you're not going to be able to have quality connections if you're not yourself.
Yes.
You know, if you haven't even met yourself. So it starts there.
Yeah.
And then there is the piece of like, what are your opportunities in life and your ability to provide and afford certain things that you may want to do or may want to afford for your family or whatever it may be. And so there's these different aspects of wealth, and that's kind of my thing is teaching it in a very multifaceted sense.
And so, all right, so now start giving me stuff here. Start giving me some mind, like now give me the stuff about like where you start them. Like give me like a, you know, what were you saying? Something law, like where do you start? How do you start educating on this stuff?
Yeah. So
where do you get into that?
Generally, at least this is the way it worked in the group. Let me back up. So it's a pretty known marketing principle to market to what people want. Right. And then give them what they need.
Give them what they need. Correct. Got it.
So
got it.
People think that they join the LUC because they want to, you know, make a bunch of money and
get rich
in crypto or, you know, leave their job because they're sick of it and, you know, learn how to do options trading or whatever, these things that I teach.
Yeah.
So we give them that on the front end.
Yeah.
But then I just go, by the way, you can crush it over here, but you're never going to be genuinely happy, at peace, or actually feel wealthy until you handle these areas.
Yep.
And so that's kind of like how I go about it.
Yeah.
And so, you'll notice a lot of my marketing is on things that are more wants of people. And then we do a nice mixture. I'd say maybe 60-40 or 70-30 of actually focusing on the needs. But of course, the engagement's not as good and people don't want to hear that. But that's fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can go. All right, let's start with like the consumer law side.
Give me consumer law.
Okay. So, a basic crash course on consumer law. The United States, as you know it, is not a nation.
Right.
It's a corporation.
Yep. And
federal law will show you this. Just look up 28 USC 3002 subsection 15A.
Yep.
It will clearly state for you right there. United States means a federal corporation.
Yep.
So if the United States is a corporation and you pay taxes, what are you? Property of the corporation.
Of the corporation. Yep.
Their name for it is chattel.
Chattel.
Just like cattle.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, and this goes...
Is it spelled like cattle?
It's CHATTEL.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Close
I just
enough.
think it's kind of funny. It's very close to cattle.
Yeah.
So that's a basic building block to understand, is that the nation you think you're in was once a nation. It's not that it's always been this way.
Right.
It's just that the United States nation
Yep.
went bankrupt around 1900. And in order to get out from bankruptcy, the nation had to sell itself to foreign insurgents, particularly European money, banking cartels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you hear names like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers.
Yep.
So the United States was sold. And at that time, the way in which they structured the deal was like, all right, we're in way too much debt. We're not gonna be able to get out from under this. So we're going to sell it to you. So the United States is currently owned by Europe. So people are all patriotic and, they want to, support the United States and get really nationalist with it, right? And it's like people don't even understand what they're actually supporting. Or like people get mad at me for talking about not paying taxes, like, oh, you're not contributing like to our rebuilding of our roads and things like that, right? Yeah. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
The IRS is owned by the IMF, which is owned by European families. So like if you want to put money in the Rothschilds trust that they don't pay taxes on, go for it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to live in fear, and I choose to educate myself on what's really going on. And if they're allowed to do this, I want to figure out how I can do this. So that's what I've been focusing on the last 2 years or so, is how are they doing this legally?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of gray area that allows that. And here's the good thing about gray area. You can go complain about it and protest in the streets and do nothing, or like accomplish nothing. Nothing's going to come of that.
Yeah.
Or you can ask yourself, how can I utilize the same laws that are working for them, but for myself? Right?
Right.
So the United States is a corporation.
And so you're saying that the U.S. is owned by Europe, but Europe.
Yeah, 100%.
And what's the IMF?
So you could say that Joe Biden works for Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the IMF?
The International Monetary Fund.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So you can basically think of the IMF as like more of like a global central bank that oversees the United States central bank. So the IRS is like its kid, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they were structuring the deal of selling the United States nation to the United States, or creating it into a corporation to foreign insurgents, part of what they did to structure that deal because remember, they're massively in debt and like, we don't know how to get out of this. Yeah. So why would foreign insurgents want to buy this? Why would that be a good deal for them?
Right.
So they had to spice it up.
Yeah.
So here's how they spiced it up. All of your property and your citizens, there's that word. You want to be
Citizens.
careful with the word citizens,
Yeah.
are going to become our property, and we're going to tax them. So you can really think of it like this. You're the property of the United States corporation, which is the property of a few wealthy European families.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to cut out
being one of them.
Yeah.
Who's the other ones?
There's Rothschilds, Rockefellers,
Yep.
Vanderbilts, some of the biggest names that built our educational systems. And
is this known? What is it? The cabal? What's the whole thing? What's that word I hear?
I don't know.
No. Okay.
Fall of the cabal? What are you
something like I don't know if the whole thing is like run by the cabal or something. I don't know.
I think I'm not
so?
positive, but
Yeah.
I think cabal is just referencing the group.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
The cloaked
Yeah.
old men.
Yeah.
You know.
The cloaked old.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So there's an excellent for anyone who's like being skeptical. I love that. I encourage you always be skeptical. I'm extremely skeptical.
Yeah.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
2 great books. First is going to be The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
That will tell you the story. That's the most in-depth book ever written on the Federal Reserve and the creation of it.
Yeah.
And then
The Creature of Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what was the other one? Oh, the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah.
So the Bilderberg Group is probably the most important thing for you to understand. You can really just look up, like if you were to look up on your phone right now, Bilderberg Group, and look at images, you'll see these tree diagrams that will show you how 9 families run the entire world, but it'll do it in a way where you can logically see it. Like, how is that possible? Well, because if they own the food supply, the main companies that produce the food, like the blanket companies that own all the little ones, and then they own the main media companies that dictate all of not only the news, but they own Disney and they own ESPN and they own Hulu and they own Netflix, and then the few main industries, right?
Yeah. But you said Bilderberg.
Bilderberg.
Like
Bilderburg, I think.
Bilderberg Group.
Yep. And there's a great audio book on that as well.
I'm all over this.
So if you combine those two, you're going to be like, all right, Jeremy, you're fucking onto something.
Yeah.
Because The Creature from Jekyll Island will walk you through the story of the creation of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't created until 1913. It's not that old.
Right.
And look at what has happened to our dollar since then.
Yeah.
Our dollar is worth about 35 times less than it was in 1913.
Wow.
35.
Wow.
Since the creation of the Federal Reserve. So it's almost like something's going on, right? And so it's like these select few families, they met in this private island called Jekyll Island. That's why it's called that.
Yeah.
And the creature is what they created,
Yeah.
the Fed. And basically it's written almost like investigative journalism.
Yeah.
Like it's very like, it's entertaining, at least if you're into this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just kind of outlines like basically who the families were and how they met, and even like some personal accounts of like people that, eyewitnesses and things like that. Cause it's very sus, right? You're not going to find anything about that on the internet or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, bringing it back, basically, first you have to understand that the United States is a corporation.
Yep.
Then you have to understand that the Federal Reserve isn't what you think it is.
Yeah.
Then you have to understand that when you're paying taxes, because of the whole thing about the United States being a corporation and you being its property. So have you ever noticed on the back of our dollar bills, what does it say?
In God we trust.
What is that last word?
Trust.
What is a trust?
A trust is held for financial reasons.
And what is the purpose?
Protected. So,
what is the usual purpose people create a trust?
So the money's protected.
Yes. So specifically, trusts are usually tax exempt.
Right.
Okay. So we've been going throughout our lives, at least this is true for me, thinking that our money, like, oh, that's cool, they're keeping God in the name.
Yeah.
That is the name of their trust. So the same way you could create a trust called Real Deal Trust, and that would protect your family's assets from taxes and potential liability.
Yep.
They called their trust In God We.
Yep.
That's the name of it. But they did it so cleverly that when you read it out, In God We Trust, you think you're saying we trust God. So we're parroting things we don't even know. I mean, I could go an hour just on the dollar bill. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But I'll just keep it to the in God we trust thing because I'm going somewhere with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you understand the United States as a corporation and you understand that we're the property of the United States because it was so in debt that it had to basically use us to pay its debts down.
Right. Yeah.
We're paying taxes. And where do our taxes go? At least where do we think they go? To the IRS, right?
Yeah.
Well, the taxes are actually going to the in God we trust. So in other words, the United States corporation, have you heard of like a corporate veil or like corporate structuring?
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So you'll have like a father company and then you'll
Yep.
have like ones under it, right?
Yep.
And it'll kind of provide protection. So you've got the in God we trust up here. It's called the Cest Quivi Trust.
Yep.
And then you'll have like branches coming out of it.
Yep.
And the United States corporation is under it. And you could also think of the IRS over here under it.
Yeah.
So you have these, and then, okay, let me go further.
Yes.
So you have the United States.
Yep.
Then what is in the United States?
We are
50 states.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So each state is also its own corporation. Then let's go down from that. Inside of states, what do you have?
Cities.
You have cities. Each city is its own corporation. And then how do states and cities enforce law? Police.
Yeah.
And court.
Yep.
Policemen are debt collectors. The court is a debt collector for the business of that jurisdiction. So if you get pulled over in San Diego by SDPD, that is a debt collector. That is not a criminal law interaction.
Yeah.
That is a commercial law, commerce, business. Why? You're speeding. Here's your ticket.
Yes.
What is that? Pay us.
Yeah.
That's business.
Yeah.
That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
So then you go to court to fight it, right? And the judge, they're determining who's getting paid.
Yeah.
That you can look up that courtroom, and it is a business. You can look these things up on Dun & Bradstreet.
Yeah.
You should be familiar with
Of
that.
course.
You run a business.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
you can look it up.
Yeah.
So you guys can look up the In God We Trust.
You can find this trust.
Yeah. And you can also look up the largest trust in the world. I recently learned this. Seed & Co. CEDE and Co. It owns something like 72 trillion in assets. This is what I'm talking about. Look it up on Dun & Bradstreet.
Yeah.
You can see the numbers. You can see, and usually
Seed & Co.
Seed & Co. Usually they're incorporated in like Delaware or Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And there's whole reasoning behind that. I'm not too much of an expert in it.
Yep.
But you know, these rabbit holes go deep, but what's crazy about it is as fragmented as they can sometimes seem, everything I have studied thus far connects.
Yeah.
So it's like, hopefully that kind of painted a picture, like from the most, you've got the United States up here.
Yep.
Down to, you've got 50 states.
Yep.
Down to, you've got cities. And then how do you enforce that? You do it with police, and then you do it with the courts.
Yep.
But like, unless you're going into a federal court, that is a court that is in the jurisdiction of the law, which is man-made law that they're constantly changing. Like, for example, mandates.
Yeah.
You've seen the things about like a mandate isn't law.
Right.
That's the difference between legal and lawful.
Right.
So now we're getting into things like common law. So you go into the wrong courtroom, you're not in a courtroom. Like, it intimidates you because there's all of this propaganda around and there's all of this ritual, and you're like, what the hell is this, right? And it seems like it's easy to play small is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But what's important to understand is that unless you're in a federal court, you're in a debt collection company right now. And they're only concerned with what you're going to pay them. And the laws that they're governed by are man-made mandates that they can constantly change and use confusing wording to bend to what they want it to mean, so that no matter what, they can get your money. And so that's the weird world we now live in, where like not only are the banks in on it, but all of the corporations are in on it, down to the police are in on it, down to the courtrooms are in on it, up to the federal government is in on it, up to the people who print our money and make our monetary supply are in on it, and the politicians are in on it. And so it's like everyone's playing the game but you.
Yeah.
That should bother you.
Yeah.
So I learned how to play the game.
Yeah.
Because the hardest part is fear.
Yeah.
And that's why I teach what I teach from a spiritual lens.
Yeah.
Because as you've learned experientially, when you are aligned here,
Yeah.
and you're at peace here, and you've learned how to operate from a place of love and faith,
Yeah.
you move different.
Oh yeah.
You're going to take what other people would call risks.
Yeah.
That others can't fathom.
Right.
And that's a lot of what's been happening to me lately.
Yeah.
Where people either don't believe some of what I'm saying, or
Yeah.
they're like, you just wait. Like,
What,
they're going to Wesley Snipes you. And it's
Yeah.
like, all crimes are commercial.
yeah.
What does that mean? That means that the only way you can go to jail and be criminally prosecuted for something like we're talking about, like
Yeah.
not paying back a debt or
Yeah.
not paying taxes, is if you're so ignorant of the law that you consent unknowingly.
Yeah.
Consent, because that's always how they get us.
Yes.
We unknowingly consent to be tried criminally. You just waived your rights. That would be the same as getting an attorney
Yeah.
who doesn't actually have your rights.
Yeah.
And that's a whole separate rabbit hole to
Yeah.
get into. Attorneys don't actually have your best interests at heart. They have to pass the bar exam. The bar is owned by Europe.
Yep.
They work for Europe. They work for those same families. They get a bigger check if you go to jail than if you stay out.
Wow.
They get checks on the back end.
You're kidding
So we're
me.
talking about the biggest racket. Like, this is crazier than The Matrix. It's crazier than
Yeah.
it. It's crazier than a sci-fi movie.
Give me a little bit on that. Now that you tease me with the court,
Which one?
with the attorneys and they get more when you go to jail.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm definitely not an expert in this, but
Yeah.
here's what I have come to learn. So there's something called maritime admiralty law.
Yeah.
And this is basically the law of the water.
Yeah.
And this originated back when all commerce was being done on ships, right?
Yeah.
Which wasn't that long ago.
Right.
A few hundred years ago, you had ports and ships had to come into dock and all of that. So just a quick rundown for you to understand maritime law without me having to explain details.
Yeah.
Let's think about some words.
Yeah.
Why is, for example, banks? So maritime admiralty law has to do with water.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do we call it when you have cash that's ready to invest?
Liquid cash.
Liquidity.
Yeah.
Root word, liquid.
Liquid.
Similar to water.
Mm.
Where do we hold our money in checking or savings accounts?
Where do we hold it?
Banks.
Yeah. Oh.
Water runs through. There's a bank on either side that dams water, right?
Yep.
Then we have words like currency, current.
Yep.
So our entire
Wow.
monetary system is based off of water words, admiralty maritime law. So now we're getting into the spiritual aspect of we're using spells and we're having spells used on us every day, and we don't actually know what these things mean. And the realm of study that I'm getting into here is quite frankly called etymology.
Yeah.
And that is the origin of words.
Right.
And so the easy, like kind of like the sovereignty starter pack is
Yeah.
like, you want to get yourself a Black's Law dictionary and you want to get yourself an etymology. Well, they have an awesome app called, just look up etymology app.
Yeah.
And you can look up the root of words.
Yeah.
And so many things you would think you know what they mean. You search it in there. It means the exact opposite. You've been getting played.
Unbelievable.
And so the difference is like what we were taught words meant in the education system, which was created by the Rockefellers to fund to basically create legions of workers to fund their factories that they created.
Yeah.
So it was this loop. they're dictating what you're learning, and they're teaching you that words mean one thing because they're teaching it to you through Merriam-Webster dictionary. But the law, what words mean in law, is completely different. So for example, we're taught, like, there's all this stuff about race, right? Black people, white people, race wars. If you look up what black means in the Webster's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, it means pale, white. Race is a man-made construct. We're taught words exactly opposite of what they actually mean. You look up what debt means. It means to keep something away from someone. What's being kept away from you? Right? So it goes pretty deep. To tie it into what you were saying about the bar. So I brought up maritime law because I'm trying to keep it simple enough. So when you walk into a courtroom, everything about that situation, you're stepping onto a ship, metaphorically. So like, I forget the name of it, but there's like the easel you have to walk through, right? There's a name for that, and it's a water word. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you guys can look into this. It's a water word. And as soon as you step through that, that is symbolic. Once again, consent. You don't know what you're doing, but by stepping through that, you're consenting. You're now stepped onto a ship. So you were on land when you were in the audience. And as soon as you went up there to be a defendant or the other side, you're now consenting to be prosecuted by the law of the water, which is Admiralty Maritime Law. And this is where it gets in. This is the realm of common law now. And basically the way that they've screwed us is, once upon a time we were governed by God's law. And this gets into the spiritual aspects of like you talking about, like wanting to really learn who you are. And God's law is basically, do not harm others, treat others as you want to be treated, do not disturb the peace. There's really just a few laws in common law. And as long as you don't breach any of those, they have no grounds to arrest you or charge you with anything. Then they created man-made law. That's what Admiralty Maritime Law is. So all of the problems that you see happening now, whether it's, why am I paying these ridiculous fines, or why do I actually have to pay this? Isn't there a way out of this? Or the words that are being used in the monetary system or the banking system or with debt or taxes, all of that is or vaccines. All of that is only possible because they can literally just create new statutes and mandates every single day that you'll never be able to keep up with to actually know your rights. But common law supersedes man-made law, because common law, also known as natural law, comes directly from God. It comes from biblical texts. It was derived from the Bible as well as other spiritual texts. So I've done like full master classes in the LUC breaking down scripture and translating how what people thought was a cool story and they got caught up on the characters. It was actually teaching us all about credit. Deuteronomy 15, I believe it is. It dives into not doing business with foreign nations. And it also dives into how after 7 years, the number 7, I'm sure you've heard, has spiritual implications, but after 7 years, debts will be cleared. Let me ask you this. How long does the derogatory mark stay on your credit report?
7 years.
Precisely. So there's like, it's a whole long passage. I don't know it off top, but I broke down line for line what was actually being said. And then I compared that to, check this out. The entire chapter that goes into anything related to consumer law is 15 USC. And Deuteronomy 15 is the most in-depth passage of the entire Bible that uses the words credit and debt.
You're kidding me.
They got it from the Bible. 15. They didn't even try to change the numbers. So it's deep. It's deep. And these are just things that I've had to find on my own, right? Like someone else can look at that and be like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. And that's fine. But to me, you see it and go like, look at it later for yourself and look at it through the lens of everything that we talk about. It's hard to not get chills. Right.
It's unbelievable.
And it's just, that was straight prophecy. And so what happened was we were ordained with certain birthrights, and over time, back to man being corrupt. over time, people who wanted more power didn't like the equal playing field.
Yeah.
And they wanted to find ways to manipulate it for their own gain and their family's own gain so that they could maintain power over generations and not have an equal competition. So they found ways to create laws, man-made laws, and kind of divert people's attention and trick them into consenting into this new system.
Yep.
So what I'm speaking to is the difference between the word legal and lawful.
Yep.
Lawful speaks to common law.
Yep.
And that is ultimately all we have to answer to, especially if you believe in God.
Right.
If you're a child of God, you have about 3, you have basically commandments to abide by.
Yep.
And as long as you live in alignment with those,
no
man gets to speak on what happens to you.
Yeah.
No man is above you. No man gets to handcuff you.
Yeah.
No man gets to trespass on you.
Yeah.
These types of things.
Right.
But we're now in this situation where, people go, paying taxes, that's illegal. And I'm like, you're right. That's your problem.
Yeah.
You're in the legal system.
Yes.
You don't want to be over here. This is where they'll mandate things and shove them in your arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's another example is like, why am I never tripping off that?
Yeah.
Why didn't I feel the need to move or get special exemptions? Because I'm not even in that system.
Yeah.
You can remove yourself from that system.
Yeah.
You can operate and be governed. You can choose what governs you. And you can choose to be governed by common law.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to be governed by legal law, man-made law. And there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And man's ideas will never supersede our Creator's ideas and preordained birthrights. So that's the situation that we're in.
And so what about people that are like atheists, that they don't even believe in God? They don't even believe there's a higher power. Like what about, because there's going to be guys, friends of mine that watches that think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What are they? Are they just automatically legal law and the joke's on them? What?
I usually just say that I feel for them.
You feel for them. There's no reason to even go into it.
Yeah. Like sometimes, actually it just happened before I came in here for this podcast.
Really?
Sometimes I get people in my DMs like just followed me. I don't know who they are. So I'm like, hey, how'd you find out about my page? And, this guy's like, just straight into it. So you're telling me I could go buy a TV and some guns, put it on a credit card and not pay the debt? And they just go straight to it. And it's like, for a lot of people, this stuff is like, they just see the material shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I could go buy a car and discharge that?
Yeah.
Like, that can't be possible. And then he proceeds to, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I let him know, like, I guess you could do that. But number one, that's an oversimplification. Number two, I probably wouldn't recommend buying guns on credit cards.
Yeah.
And number three, that's not the point.
Yeah.
And he comes back like, you're lying. Like this is like, when they say too good to be true, this is the type of thing they're talking about. And I just responded like, dude, I'm not selling you anything.
Yeah.
I have nothing to prove to you. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of the thing is like, I spent over 5 years since being in some form of a leadership coaching role.
Yeah.
I spent the first 5 years trying to save people. And I finally closed that karmic cycle in 2020.
Yeah.
Tough lesson to learn.
Yes.
Because because of some of my early childhood dynamics, I derived self-worth from trying to save others. And that kept me stuck. It kept me in a range, because when you try to save people who are addicted to suffering, that just pulls you down.
Right.
They don't actually want help.
They don't actually want help.
So a lot of people, they just want to debate me, and I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Save yourself or don't. I'm building a raft either way. The flood is coming either way. I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
I've been good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that, like, how, like, the audacity of, there's just a lot of people that are like, you're wrong, and you need to prove to me why you're not wrong. And it's like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I really could care less. Like, have fun paying taxes.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Have fun working.
Have fun thinking that your dollars
life
actually go to the roads and hospitals. Have fun with that.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
I can show you studies. when it was either Roosevelt or Nixon was in office,
Yeah.
he had his cabinet do like the largest study on where our tax dollars went.
Yeah.
And it shows that 0% actually goes to our roads,
Yeah.
highways, hospitals, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like the actual president, they put it out.
Where was it going?
I don't remember.
I know.
I
I know where it wasn't.
If you wanted to share the resource, I'll have to go find it and I can
Yeah.
send it to you later.
Yeah.
But it's just like a crazy thing, you know? And I always teach from the lens of like, I'm used, like, cause like we went through my whole story. So now
Yeah.
it's over a decade of me being the crazy dude. So I'm already used to anticipating skepticism.
Yeah.
Like number one, that's healthy. Like
Yeah.
you should, like,
Absolutely.
if you're just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it all makes sense. Like that's sus.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you
yeah.
should be doubting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also like, it's up to, you know, this isn't for everyone
No.
at all.
No.
It's like, you're going to have to be a leader. You're probably already going to have to be someone who's never really quite fit in and noticed like things, even if just unconsciously, like what I have found in cause we've really created a family in the LUC. Like
Yeah.
the people who joined, they're already somehow on this wavelength,
Right.
even without this information. They're like
Yeah.
already there.
Right,
And
correct.
that's just a testament to like law of attraction and
Yes.
you know, your vibe attracting your tribe and stuff. But when you're teaching this stuff, like what I've noticed is pretty much all of these people, and we now have like almost 70 members.
Yeah.
They almost every single one of them has a very similar background to me in the sense of not the drugs, but in the sense of like feeling like things didn't add up.
Yeah.
So if you don't already have the background of like, for example, if you're looking around the world right now
Yeah.
and this seems normal to you,
Yes.
then
Yes.
it's probably not for you.
This is probably
Like if you're just like, can't wait for the next booster.
Yeah.
And
Want to mask
God,
up.
Biden's such a fearless leader and a great role model. Like if that's you, then this isn't for you. But like if you're looking at it like this is a sick fucking joke that makes Jersey Shore look like a masterpiece that deserves a Grammy,
Yeah.
then there's answers for you.
There's answers for you. Oh my God. All right. So now we're over 90 minutes in. Okay. So, and I want to keep going so bad. So we gotta, but I want to hit on, can we hit on the credit thing?
Yeah.
I wanted the race thing I want to hit on because you said the black in the dictionary is actually what? Clear, pale.
It means pale and white. Yeah.
For
sure.
What's happening? All right. Let me just,
It's brilliant. You have to appreciate. A lot of people are stuck in this thing of like, oh, fuck the powers that be.
Yeah.
You have to give them their flowers and study it. How did they pull it off?
Right.
Because that's your key to success.
That's your key.
And if you can't get past the anger and the hatred, that's just propagating duality.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the opposite of love. The opposite of love is separation. It's not hate. So you think you're doing something to hurt them or beat them. You're doing exactly what they want you to do when you're not unifying. And even them. So getting to that point where it's like having empathy for them, like that they feel so small or they felt so powerless that they needed to do this to feel okay or whatever it may be, right? Like we're never going to know the exact reasons, but you can kind of discern from human nature why people would do this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of share that tidbit, but I brought that up because like I saw your mind going to the place, like there's so many lanes and that's where it is. It's like, it's an orchestra, all working in symphony. Yeah. Like I know Jack's touched a bit on like the food, and then like the pineal gland, and even like the toothpaste, and then like what's on the TV and what's in the music. Like
the music,
it's everything at once, and that's the only way you can pull it off. And that is why people like me sound crazy, because they left no stone unturned.
100%.
So in order to have this conversation, you gotta be all in and you gotta know every piece. Cause if you only know some, you're like, yeah, but what about this and this and this? Like, no, like it's everything is connected. So even like the aspect of race, I'm definitely not an expert on this. Once again, I just do my own research and I'm learning every day. But what I will say about that is what we were taught about the history of, you know, how we came to America was entirely false. It was entirely created by the same people who benefit from you believing a certain something. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
From the same people who created the school system, which I already mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they dictate what books are in there. They dictate what goes in your brain, which dictates what you think is reality right now.
Right. Yeah.
So why are you so confident that your reality is the reality? Just think about that. You learned it from a book. You're just regurgitating.
Yeah.
So a lot of what actually happened is, and there's different accounts. I don't want to claim like I know the absolute truth, but from my understanding, this land was already populated by Aboriginals, basically copper-colored people. Yeah. This is what people who are now called black are. Yeah. They're referred to as Moors. Yep. They call themselves Moors sometimes. And basically, we didn't bring them here. They were here. Yeah. We took their land, raped, pillaged, enslaved. We made them adopt our European colonialist systems. We colonized them. Yeah. Right. So that's essentially what happened. And the benefit, or what comes along with that, is that you get to rewrite their history. So there was also this sinister aspect of trying to really oppress a certain demographic. And the way they did that is, well, once you rape, pillage, and then kind of like enslave and establish that like hierarchy, right? Yeah. Well, then it's only going to take a few generations of like whoever wins the battle gets to write history, right? Yeah. Have you ever noticed how history is his story? Yes. So whoever wins the battle gets to write what happened. Yeah. The Europeans won the battle. Yep. They got to rewrite Aboriginals' history, and they called them African Americans and created these things about that they came from Africa. They didn't even come from Africa. They were already here. This was their land. This is their land. So in many senses, Native Americans and African Americans, they're not very different. Yeah. They were Aboriginals. This is their land. This was their land. So there's that piece of it. And then, so the words like African American, that's just straight programming. And then also, once again, the word black. Yeah. So just look it up, guys. Free PDF online, or try to find it. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Just look up what black means. And it clearly says pale, white. It has a number of different things. But it's just like one of those things, like I'm sure you're familiar. Like they mock us. They put it in your face. Yeah. Like in the kids' cartoons, or it's right in your face. Yeah. Like it's kind of a joke. Yeah. But it's also an agreement apparently that they have with, call it Satan or whatever. It's also an agreement that they have that they do have to show what they're doing. Yeah. It's just shown subconsciously, and most people don't pick up on it. Yeah. So that's like, to me, that's just like a sick joke that they pull, where like they literally chose the one word that means the opposite of black. Unbelievable. And we still have people going, Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Go look who funds that. Yeah. Like, so it goes so
it goes who's
so
funding
deep,
it?
Right?
Who's funding it?
So you now not only do you have white people fighting black people, they're like, yes, division. Yeah. But now you've got half the black community going, Black Lives Matter. Democrats will help us. You know, go Joe Biden. He really cares. Go Kamala. Yeah. And then the other half, who's like, yo, that's a man-made construct. You're oppressing us more than the white man is. Yeah. So now they've got them. They're oppressing themselves. Yeah. And I'm sure it's polarizing to say that and to hear that. But I am friends with and learn from a number. Almost every one of my mentors is what I'll call, I'm not even going to call them African American, Aboriginal. Yeah. I learned from almost entirely melanated people. Yeah. And this is what they have taught me about their history. Yeah. Of like what actually happened. Yeah. Of learning from books and accounts that you're not going to find, right? School's not going to show you them. You've never heard of them. You're not going to see them on Amazon. And So now it's within their own people.
Yeah.
But they're definitely a minority. I'd say 10% or less are aware of any of that, you know? So, and then there's the whole division of like, if you're saying the one thing, then the others are coming at you of like, you know, you're selling out our people, you're confusing our heritage.
Yeah.
But then on their side, it's like, yo, you guys are literally supporting the enemy by saying Black Lives Matter. Like you're literally enslaving yourself. Like they took the chains off in, whatever, 100-ish, 150 years ago. They just switched them from physical chains to mental chains. And the way they do that is through words now. Words and systems. But it all starts with words. So etymology is key. I teach a lot of that. Because you can't get into common law or consumer law until you understand words. It'd be like trying to be a rapper, but you don't really have a good diction. Yeah. You can't, you know? Yeah. Like, good luck. So because words are spells, right? Like, literally when you're saying something, it has a certain vibration. And then it also has unconscious and subconscious implications to it in the way that it makes you feel and things that get processed that you're not even consciously aware of. So that's kind of like, it's genius. It's
genius. All right. So we got to hit on this. I got to get some information out of you on this. I don't know. Can you give me just give me a few minutes on the credit thing? And then I got another topic in mind. We're going to end on this other topic. Cool. We're gonna land the plane, but give me a couple because the credit thing is so big. And who's ever still tuned in here, they just picked up on this, resonated with this anyway. So they're still here. I know it. The others that ain't here anymore, like you said, you know, they're buying into what's happening. Good luck with that. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Anyway, give me a few minutes on the credit.
Okay. Let's start here.
Okay.
When you were born, your parents were tricked into creating a birth certificate for you.
Yep.
That birth certificate is attached to, it has a certain, I don't know if it's 9, 10 digit, it has a code on there.
Yeah.
That code, that contract turned you into property. Yep. So you remember what I talked about?
Yeah.
If you didn't get a birth certificate, you are what would be called fully sovereign. You never got plugged into the system.
Yep.
The second you have that contract, your birth certificate is now traded on publicly traded bond markets and equities markets. Mm-hmm. You're a literal commodity. Anyone who wants to look deeper into this, you can go to gmeiutility.org, either .com or .org.
Yeah.
gmeiutility. Type in your social with the dashes.
Yeah.
And you can go see how many people are currently accessing your credit. Now, that's not going to fully make sense until I explain this, but just keep that in mind.
Okay.
So, birth certificate puts you in the system. That's been traded your whole life.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're 50.
Yeah.
So if you look that up, Jax had like 175,000. Think of them as karmic cords.
Yeah.
Leached onto her right now.
Yeah.
175,000 entities are currently leeching her credit in some way.
Wow.
Now, what does that mean? Like, oh, you should go file an identity theft? Like, no. Just in the sense of, number one, it's being publicly traded. And number two, anytime you've ever entered your social for anything, which everything requires it.
Everything, yeah.
Or they say they do, right?
That's
the legal side of, right?
Yep.
It's not lawful, but it's legal.
Right. Yeah.
So with their processes, they're going to tell you it's mandatory if you want to contract with them.
Yeah.
So every time you do that, check this out. So you go into a dealership, you want to get a $50,000 car, okay?
Yep.
They're going to, you do your negotiations. They're like, all right, we're going to see what we can do for you. They're going to go run your credit.
Yep.
They're going to come back and they're going to be like, all right, so we weren't able to approve you, right? So let's just say they weren't able to approve you.
Yep.
That $50,000 they pulled, they got paid the second they pulled that, regardless, even though they came back out and they declined you.
They got paid.
$50,000. And because you don't know your consumer rights,
Yeah.
you'll walk out of there like, oh, I guess I'll try somewhere else, or I'll go try to improve my credit and I'll come back.
Yeah.
They just got paid $50,000. How?
Yeah.
Let me tie it in. We've been taught that we're debtors.
Yeah.
And that corporations are creditors, like the bank, JP Morgan, for example, or the car. You want to get a car, they're going to hit up different banks and see who you'll qualify for.
Yep.
So we've been taught that we need Wells Fargo to extend us their credit, right?
Yep.
And then we become in debt to their credit, right?
Yep.
Our birth certificate gave us, via birthright, an infinite, open-ended credit plan.
Yeah.
Meaning that if you have a social, you have unlimited access to credit. We've just been programmed backwards.
Yeah.
So when you go into the auto dealer and they go, all right, we're going to see if you qualify for this $50,000 car, and they come back and they say, no, you don't, they got paid off your social.
Yep.
Do you see how that worked?
Yes.
They extracted life force from you.
Yep.
And you don't even know what happened. Now, if you knew consumer law to a in-depth degree,
Yeah.
you can sue them.
Yeah.
And suing doesn't have to mean going to court.
Right.
I'm suing people in the mail constantly.
Yeah.
You can be getting checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Number one, there's a financial aspect to it.
Yeah.
Number two, no one is allowed to decline you the extension of your own credit.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it a few times so that it can sink in.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught that we're being extended credit.
Yes.
And what does that do spiritually to us? It puts us in a victim mindset.
Yep.
Because we're not the one who's calling the shots.
Yes.
So we're basically like, please, JP Morgan,
Yeah,
please approve me. And then when they go, you know what? We're only going to fuck you and charge you 10% a year for 30 years. And you're so happy for them to do that. Thank you so much. Now I can, keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Not knowing that that's your credit, you extended to them. They pulled it out from your infinite credit plan for that amount of the mortgage. And they went, here, have it right back, plus 10% a year over 30 years. So you end up paying 3 times back to them in a fraudulent transaction. And if you know how to prove this with the law, that is how debt discharge works. So banking is fraud. I believe
Straight
it's
up fraud.
Straight up fraud. I believe it's 12 USC 1411 clearly states the duties of a bank.
Yeah.
Nowhere in there does it say that they're allowed to lend. Nowhere. They're not even allowed to lend.
Oh my God.
It's like Congress wrote this.
Yeah.
It clearly states. So Congress will tell you that the United States is a corporation.
Yeah.
Congress will tell you that banks aren't allowed to lend. There has to be what's called the equal, basically an equal exchange of value.
Yeah.
And since we're dealing with a fake fiat currency and banks no longer hold gold in the vaults,
right.
What are they giving you?
Yeah.
You gave them your credit. They gave you back your credit. Where was the equal exchange of value?
There wasn't.
So if you can prove that, this is how, some of my mentors have discharged their houses.
Are you kidding
Straight
me?
up mortgage deed in their name.
Even though they're living in the house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Paying the mortgage for a while, whatever.
Yep.
They've got.
Yeah, because they didn't, you didn't know you were being violated for 5 years. And then on the first month of the 6th year, you're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And so, number one, you can technically, according to federal law, get all of those payments back.
Yeah.
And number two, depending on the statutes we're talking about, some sections are $1,000 per violation they did. Some sections are $10,000. Some sections are $100,000. And that's just if you're going off of like counting how many violations they had.
Yeah.
That's not if you decide to take them to court and then you can sue for mental emotional damages, in which that's up to you. So
and so can you still live in the house?
Yeah, that's the whole point. So
that's the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's called like entities put a lien on it, a security interest.
Yes.
So you buy a car,
and
they have a lien on your car until you make your last payment. Right. Then they'll send you your title slip with the without a lien on it.
Yeah.
So you stop paying your payments, they are going to come try to repo it.
Yeah.
So with the house, you're going to get a knock on the door. They're going to come try to foreclose it.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, once again, that's why I'm not like I'm selective with what I share on social media because, you know, how many people am I going to get applying for the LUC if I start talking about how you can discharge a house?
Yeah.
And number one, it's like, I haven't done that. I like to teach from experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And number two, just because you can do something doesn't mean I'm telling you to do it. And it also doesn't mean you're spiritually and cognitively qualified.
Yeah.
You have to have brass balls and certainty. Like, you see how I can just name codes off top and I can tell you about them.
Yes.
And if you went to read that code right now as a new person, you'd be like, how did you get that from this?
Yeah.
And it's like, because I had to train my brain to decipher what their bullshit language means.
Yes.
I put in the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's no quick fix. And there's a lot of people now entering this space. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. It's like very small.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I'm noticing more and more people who, like, there's a type of person who comes in who's like, let's, you know, like, what can I do with this in 30 days? And it's like, or like, I can't pay my mortgage. My house is about to be foreclosed on. Will this work for me? And it's like, no, you're going to need to study for a solid year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so.
Wow. So if your mind isn't blown with that one, I'm just telling you, okay.
And that applies to student loan debt, credit card debt, auto debt, any debt.
Every bit of it has been basically
yes, because all debt is fraud. Remember when I said all crimes are commercial?
Yes.
All debt is fraud. It's all coming back to, like, we've now touched on some really cool foundations, and I think we laid a good enough broad slate. Once you understand that the United States is a corporation, you understand all that stuff. Then you understand how the birth certificate works, and you go look up your social, and you're going to be like, what in the shit? 200 pages of...
I don't even want to look at mine.
You're going to see... Jax looked hers up. You'll see Rockefeller.
Are you kidding
Rothschild.
me?
Yeah, you'll see the actual names of the
up.
families who are leeching, and what are the spiritual implications of that? Like, if you... In the spiritual space, there's a... exercises called cord cutting, where you cut kind of like either relationships or like entities. You kind of like cleanse yourself. What are the implications of 175?
Like a deliverance kind of thing.
Yeah. Like a baptism.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect of it. And then once you understand that your birth certificate, so 15 USC 1602 goes through all of the definitions. This is called Truth in Lending Act.
Yeah.
It's basically just the foundations of... Let's explain all up front. When we say person, what does it mean?
Yeah.
When we say debt, what does it mean? When we say credit card, what does it mean? For example, credit card doesn't mean your Chase or your Amex Platinum.
Yeah.
Credit card is your social security card. I probably should have started there. So you learn this when you read the definitions, 15 USC 1602. Go down to where it says what credit card means. And it will say any plate or coupon, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to paraphrase the whole thing, but it's talking about your birth certificate. So when you're reading any laws or statutes about a credit card, it's not talking to you about Amex. It's talking to you about your social. That is what originates all consumer credit transactions. But we don't know that because they tricked us with the verbiage. So if you think a credit card is your Chase Freedom, then you're reading all of it and you're like, Jeremy, none of this is helping me. And it's like, okay, well, that's the whole legal lawful thing. You got to understand words. But a credit card, once you understand that that's your social, you realize the power you hold as a consumer. You have a lot of power as a consumer. And the entire 15 USC chapter 41, the entire chapter, it's very thorough, is all about consumer laws that are federally protected. You're federally protected as a consumer by the Senate and Congress. And there's a number of institutions that enforce this. Government bureaus enforce this.
You're kidding me.
So you can basically go above these entities and make them comply. And this is what I do and am now teaching.
This is what you do and are now teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a whole, my mind's freaking blown. Now, we're going to wrap this up with, I want you to give everybody that's still hanging on right now, and their minds are exploding at this point, what's happening right now in our society, in our country, or let's say the world, with the pandemic and the fear, and you got to get the vaccine. give me your advice for those listening and that are right now, how they don't know where to go from here. What do I do? Can you sum this up? Is that possible? Or am I opening up another rabbit hole here? Was this whole thing has it been in works for years? Can we go?
Yeah. Many decades.
Many decades.
Yeah. So 2020 was just their opportunity to shift generational wealth and have the public's see if they would have just came out and tried to announce, hey, we're going to shift, away from the dollar. We're going to migrate more to cryptocurrency. We're going to start mandating things. We're going to require you to have vaccine passports. We're going to go more towards socialist and kind of like what China's doing with the social scores. If they would have just came out and done that, the world would the United States would have went into pandemonium and there would have been resistance, even with the sheep.
Yes.
But you orchestrate a crisis and a large percentage of humans will willingly give away their rights.
Yes.
So they needed to usher in a once in a every few decades systemic change. You notice crypto finally got its start in 2020.
Yes.
You notice they printed 40% of the entirety of all they've ever printed in quantitative easing in the last year. In 2020 alone, they printed 40% of our money supply. I want you to really think about that. I said it was created in 1913. The Fed was created in 1913. In 2020, they devalued our dollar 40% in 1 year.
1 year.
So they're intentionally debasing our currency. And we're headed towards the United States isn't going to be the world currency. We're not going to use the dollar. They're intentionally devaluing it. And that's why money has to flow into assets. Otherwise, you're getting reamed. Where else, what are you? So like crypto is the perfect hedge because everyone's starting to catch on. Like there's obviously an agenda. People think they're stupid. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think.
What do we do here?
Well, I'm personally of the belief that things aren't nearly as bad as a lot of people and who people who know, I guess who you would say in our circle, who know these types of things. Yeah. It's easy to be very, very doom and gloom about it.
Yeah, it is.
But here's what I've noticed. The doom and gloomers have made a shitload of predictions. Because remember, I've been into this for 12, 13 years now. Like I watched the 9/11 documentary when I was like 17. Yeah. About how that was an inside job. Yeah. I wrote a paper on it in college. My professor gave me an A+ and said, I agree.
Wow.
So it's like I was waiting for 2020 to happen. Yeah. It's not a surprise to me, but most of the world is like, what the hell is this? Yeah. Yeah. But where I was going with this is that a lot of people are doom and gloom about it. And because I've been aware of these things for a long time, it's not new to me. When you're new, you're like, oh my God, like it's going to shit. Like it's happening now. Yeah. Yeah. Like like Jesus is going to come back tomorrow type. Like my mom. Right. I'm just of the opinion that this is all part of the plan. Yeah. And I don't even mean the man plan. Yeah. I mean the divine plan. The divine plan. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that the rapture is happening tomorrow. I don't think that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. I think that in many ways, there's never been a better time to be alive in many ways. It just depends where you're focusing your two superpowers, which is your intention and your attention. You can create your world, or you can look at the world to determine what you want to create. And if you do the latter, you're fucked. Yeah. If you do the latter, you're not going to create, or you're going to create toxicity. If you start inwards and your reality is just a projection of what occurs in here first. The world is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And when you go deep enough into consciousness work, or you take psychedelics, or you have any sort of transcendental out-of-body type experiences, it's become very obvious to me that none of this is, I guess the best way to say it is that everything that's happening is just a projection of ourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you zoom out far enough, there is only one consciousness in existence, and it is perceiving itself, and that is life.
Yeah.
So we might think there's 7 point something billion people, but that's just different lenses. We're viewing, like I'm looking at myself right now.
Yeah.
And I know in some senses we know that, like, oh, we're all one, like, let's not fight. But literally in the higher levels of consciousness, that's just the best way I could explain it. And so from those, that's the lens that I live through.
Yeah.
I don't know how practical that's going to be for your audience, or someone who's, not as, doesn't have a background in spirituality. But the reason why I think that that's important is because I don't hate Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I don't have issues with the Fed. I think that all of these things are manifesting. Here's the best way to say it. They're projections of our own psyche. That's it. We're seeing it's the microcosm, macrocosm thing. We're seeing out in the world what we refuse to face when we're sitting alone in lotus position in a chair. The parts about ourselves we refuse to look at. The ugliness, the things we've done or at least are capable of. The things we've thought that we would die before we let anyone know that. Though that shadow.
Yeah.
Because we repress and suppress it, it manifests. And this is the life's work of people like Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Who, the Swiss psychologist, psychoanalyst, who studied the unconscious for their entire lives. And it's basically, he's the one who has that famous quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, yet you'll call it fate. And that's what we're seeing from the individual to the entire population, is until the population as a whole individually each gets to a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah.
This is what our world looks like, because this is what we look like.
Right.
It's easy to go, that shit's ugly, I would never do that. But no. That's you.
That's you.
That's you.
That's you.
That's you. And as long as we're pointing fingers at Rothschilds and Rockefellers, we're not going up. And I don't mean to heaven. I mean like levels of consciousness. Like we all have to go inward and have that realization at scale.
Yeah.
Then the world will look very different.
Dude. Come on, bro. Unbelievable. Look at the every hair standing up on me.
He's got chills.
Look at that. If you watching or listen, well, if you're listening, you can't see this, but dude, we could go on, but that was the perfect ending to this, man. And I'll tell you right now, that just pierced my soul in a phenomenal way. The last thing that you just said was so profound, that we're projecting what's inside of us. And until we go within and what truly unbelievable, man. Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for coming in today. Level Up Collective, hit me up, get a hold of this guy. How many peeps can you take into this thing? Like, how many peeps can you take on?
We don't have a specific limit. We just,
but you got to be ready.
Yeah. So the main thing is we do have a qualifying process. So you have to join our wait list and submit an application.
Gotcha.
And then we have a number of questions. And then depending on your answers, that lets me get a feel for people. And then if needed, I'll, reach out to them and go a little bit further, because I'm not going to accept your money. Yeah. If I have any doubts that you're not going to thrive. That's basically it. And so that could be consciousness reasons. That could be monetary reasons. That could be self-doubt, whatever. Yeah. I'm not going to put you in a position where you're not going to potentially succeed, or you're just not going to fit in. Like that doesn't benefit anyone.
Exactly.
So there's that. And then we pretty much only do enrollment once a quarter.
Yeah.
So by the time this comes out, they would probably just want to hop on our wait list. And then our next enrollment should probably be in March.
And I'm booking you. Like within the day, I'm booking you for your next podcast, bro. You got it.
Okay.
We got it. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
I can go on.
I love this.
I can keep going. And ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. If this resonated with you, like, comment, because everybody's so damn busy they can't even comment anymore.
Right.
It's like even mustering up a like's like brutal, right? A share, subscribe. Let us keep going with this flow. Us meaning Real Deal Talk.